What is going on, guys and girls? Level Up here at OnPointTactical. Today we are talking about what is potentially the biggest problem in Battlefield 4 and a general channel update in my situation with the game, because as most of you know, I've had some technical difficulties, to say the least, with the game actually installing on my console. Now I'm going to address the fact that I went and bought a hard copy of Battlefield 4 on a disc, so that is no longer an issue. I do have Battlefield 4, and I am able to play it as of this very moment. Now there is some Battlefield 3 gameplay thrown in here, but that's just because I got some killer rounds going and I wanted to share some of that enjoyment with you. But I think that the biggest issue in Battlefield 4 right now, since DICE is sort of out looking for different things that is asking the community, and go to Battlelog and post what you think, like what needs to be nerfed and whatnot. And I would say that the biggest problem isn't necessarily the decisions that DICE has made with the game. I would say that some of the largest issues is the player. It's client-side errors, or client-side just abuse of the system, basically. A good, I think, instance of this would be a player that runs around on Operation Locker with a 12 gauge just because it's more effective. Like they could care less about the integrity of playing the game. They think that it should just be, you use whatever you can to be the best you, and as long as you're winning, it doesn't matter. I think that that's probably one of the biggest issues in the game, is that people think like that whenever they play the game. It's like, as long as you're winning, you know, what difference does it make? There's no room to complain, there's no room for anything if you're winning. I think that that mentality has become way too popular in not only Battlefield 4, but in first-person shooters in general. It's just become, like, okay to think that way, and I think that that is probably, like, the single largest problem with Battlefield 4, is people thinking that way. So any of us Battlefield veterans or hardcore Battlefield players are getting somewhat disappointed by some of the gameplay just because of that. Now, that's not to say that there aren't things that should be buffed. I think that the attack helicopters in general should be buffed, and I think a fantastic way to do that would be to bring back below radar, to potentially make the flare recharge time not as long on the choppers. I think would be an okay way to help balance them out. The scout helicopters need to have a slower speed whenever there's someone repairing on the side of it, because, I mean, if you have two reppers on the scout chopper, you can pretty much survive anything as long as you keep your flares running and you know what you're doing. So the risk-reward factor of the below radar system, I think that is a perfect mechanic. I think that it needs to come back, and I think it has a perfect place in Battlefield 4 right now. Now, as far as weapon balance is concerned, I'm not too happy with the way that pretty much the entirety of the weapons in Battlefield 4 are, and I think that the best example of that is that there really isn't much advantage as far as a versatility standpoint using this weapon versus this weapon. Pretty much all of them are going to perform okay in some situations and really well in one situation. There's way too much of that mentality, and there really aren't too many weapons that sort of cater to everything decently. I think that that's why the M16A3 was so amazing in Battlefield 3, was that it was not good, or particularly good at any one thing, but that was the exact same reason why it was used all the time, was because it was so versatile, and the fact that it was decent at just about anything. There's no weapons that sort of fall under that category right now. I would say that even like the Ace-23 and the 416 in Battlefield 3, I would say that the Ace-23 is more of a close-range weapon, and the 416 is still a bit of a long-range weapon because of its laser accuracy, and in close quarters you're just going to get stomped. You know, with the M16A3, you could get totally just mutilated versus an AEK or a FAMAS, but if you had enough skill, you could stand a chance, and there really isn't anything like that going on in Battlefield 4 right now. So I would say that if we're talking about weapon balance, I would say that if we take the Ace-23 and leave its rate of fire at 770, and take the M416 and put its rate of fire at 800 or 850 or so, and then give it a little bit more recoil, I think that that would pretty much just open up a couple more windows of opportunity for some of the big hitting assault rifles, as far as like the SCAR or big hitting weapons like the SCAR and the 240 Bravo to sort of take back that territory of being a long range weapon, focus these more towards mid range or close range combat, and then have the light machine guns and the SCAR H and the AK-12 and the DMRs sort of take that spot of the long-range weapons. Now the DMRs are under discussion still. I would say that if you're really wanting to make them competitive, take them back to Battlefield 3 damage. It worked almost perfect. Battlefield 3 statistics, just copy-paste them as best as you can. I think that would be a fantastic way to handle the DMRs. Light machine guns, I would say, don't need to be changed a whole lot, but you could mess with the recoil numbers, with the accuracy of the light machine guns, to have some fun. I don't know if it would be ideal or not, but you could definitely kick around the idea of it, and then pretty much just move on and not really think about it, I guess, would be the better way to handle that. Now, if we're talking map balance, I would say that the biggest problem is Langkang Dam Conquest Large. It is an absolute nightmare for air vehicles, or rather it's a nightmare with air vehicles, because if you have the air vehicles, you can lock down the entire map, but also if you have the mobile AA running, you can shoot to the other team's deployment with the active radar. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So to make that map balanced, you would have to pretty much just take down the range of the mobile artillery, or the mobile AA, mobile anti-air vehicle. You would want to take its range down with both the machine guns and the active radar missiles to make it work. Now, you could pull sort of a IRNV situation in balancing and make the range of the mobile AA change between maps on the active radar missiles and the lock-ons and whatnot. That could be a really interesting way to add a bit of variety to the gameplay instead of just having one guy sitting off on the corner of the map somewhere with a mobile AA all game going on like a 20 kill streak. It's a little overpowered, and it really isn't a whole lot of fun, and certainly isn't all that enjoyable. Now, the pistols, I think, need to be brought up one more time. Even though I've probably brought it up before, I think that they're nowhere near as good as they were in Battlefield 3, and the reason for that is the fact that on both Xbox One, 360, and PlayStation 4, we're having to use the bottom trigger, which takes some distance to actually pull to complete your ADS or your firing, so you can't really tap fire the 9mm and make them work. That's why on console there's a lot of players using the Shorty 12 gauge, there's a lot of players using the 1911, there's a lot of players using the G18 and the 93R because of this as well. So I would say that the best way to handle that would be to offer up a control setting to put the triggers back on top on both consoles. Now, I know that the Xbox guys would absolutely hate this, but you could give them the option, and if they didn't use it, oh well. Now, on PlayStation 4, there's a lot of us, including myself, that think that I would much prefer the old triggers. Now, I know people love the actual triggers and that they're like way more comfortable, blah 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 blah, but the click distance is so much shorter on the top buttons. It overall just makes a heck of a lot more sense for a first-person shooter. Now, DICE, you have more than enough power to make this happen, and I think that that would be a fantastic way to getting the console gameplay up a bit, because right now it's a little bit lacking. PC gameplay, I've heard, is just fantastic as far as how the game feels and handles, so I can't say anything on that half of the world, but I can say that I currently do not approve of how the console game feels just because of those triggers. Now, it could be that Sony's pushing you to not change it, and if that's the case, that's fine. I guess we can all get over it and quit using the 9mm. But if you can't change the controls, you need to balance the console game and the PC game separately. And the best method of going about that would be to change some of the weapon damage and recoil on console to make it just a little bit more balanced. And the first place I think you should start would be to up the damage on the 9mm a little bit, just to get them to where they're either more effective in that respect or lower the recoil on them a bit and just give them some sort of advantage. Burst weapons, kind of the same idea. If you could lower the recoil, that would be amazing. Oh, and also, DICE, if you could throw in the M16A3, I'm sure that myself and a lot of players would absolutely love it, because I don't know about you guys, but I miss my M16A3. Another problem with Battlefield 4 is that it doesn't have quite the fast-paced action that Battlefield 3 had. I've been playing Battlefield 3 because of my install failing, and I would say that it is a lot more action-packed, maybe even a bit more arcadey, but that is totally okay. I kind of want that gameplay back, so if you can figure out something to bring that aspect back into Battlefield 4, that would be amazing. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm LevelUp here at OnPointTactical, and I hope to see you guys on the battlefield.